We're going live. Oh, well, look at that. You are live. You are live. Well, today I'm very lucky to be here with Sean Debney, who's a good friend of mine, but also an incredibly interesting character. And unlike my superimposed backdrop, his is real. So where are you at the moment, Sean?
Yeah, hi. Hi, Adam. Yeah, I'm in County Donegal, where I live. I'm on the northwest coast of Ireland. I'm at a place called Marble Hill, which is just out between Creasler and Dunfanaghy, and it's a stunning spot. I'm actually going to show you, if that's
Go on,
okay, Adam.
give us a spin round.
I'll give you a twirl. I'll give you a twirl.
Show us where you are, my friend.
So there we go. So I'm just in the dunes by the beach in this incredible beach here. It's amazing. And yeah, beautiful part of the world. And I've just dropped my daughter here. She's working at the little cafe here for the day. So I've opportunity to drop her down and to take some time here and yeah, to be with you and everyone who's showing up. And to, yeah, let's talk about, as you said, Adam, how to sort our shit out. So
sort your shit out, absolutely. Well, with you there in a nice natural environment, let's talk about that. Let's actually start. So you hit rock bottom. You've hit rock bottom, and I know that you have a couple of times.
Yeah, certainly.
How do you reverse it once you hit that low thing? What is the number one thing when you get your mind together? How do you start to jolt yourself out of that?
Yeah, that's a big, Jesus, that's a hell of a question. I think it's unique to each person. I think if you're talking burnout, and I've had a couple of one particularly bad burnout where I basically caved for nearly 3 months. It took me 3 months before I could function again. Horrible place to be. But I think what you've got to look at is when you hit rock bottom, when you've burnt out, when you've crashed like that, it's your system taking you into what we call involuntary recovery. It's forcing you into forced recovery because you haven't listened to the warning signs along the way. And once you're at that place, then you're looking at physical, emotional, mental, spiritual shutdown. And there has to be the point at which you recognize it for what it is. So the first thing is to recognize I've really overcooked it. I'm really at rock bottom. I'm done. Where, what's brought me here, and how can I start to begin to rebuild my life? And it starts with coming back to what is tangible in each moment, in each day. It's about nourishing yourself. It's about looking after yourself, starting with the physical, looking at supporting your sleep and movement and exercise, nutrition, really looking at maybe some of the dependencies you've had on things to manage, like alcohol, caffeine. Those things can keep your system on a ramp up rather than a reset. So yeah, lots of things we can talk about around this. But for me, one of the big things, we're here now in this beautiful place. It's actually coming out of the self-referencing of the hell that I was in, and beginning to turn that focus outwards and connecting more to the simplicity of nature. That's always worked for me. That's always been something that's been a really, really wonderful poultice for me over any wounding, and starts that sort of coming home to myself in a really, really good way, and starting to relax into the system that is actually here to support us every moment of our lives. But we tend to lose track of that as human beings. We get so caught up with the machinations of our thinking and our mind and our doing, we forget the fact that we live within multiple systems all the time, and nature being the biggest one of all. So yeah, nature connection's a big one when we're really hitting rock bottom, Adam. Coming back and nourishing, and whatever that means to you is to nourish yourself.
Absolutely. Well, I completely agree. Nature is my default setting. Nature
Yeah,
and breath work,
yeah,
grounding,
completely,
breathing,
completely.
nature, and
Yeah,
it's that combination. When I hit the low points, that's always my reference. But that's when I catch myself. Start with the
yes,
breathing,
yeah.
grounding, nature. So completely agree with you on that front. We've got a
And
few
gentle
people jumped on.
exercise, walking, and for me, I've been on and off practicing kung fu for 25 years, so I know if I train regularly, my energy's so much better. I'm feeling more in my body. I'm feeling stronger, more flexible. So all of those are metaphors for navigating the struggles of life. So really focusing on that physical dimension can be very powerful.
For
As
sure.
you say, breath work as well, really coming back to the breath on a regular basis throughout the day, even just 5 to 10 breaths, taking a moment, taking a pause, can help that reset and come back into the present moment, but deeply into your body, beyond just the lungs, into the belly. Just amazing.
For
Yeah,
sure. Right. Well, we've got a few people joined us now, Sean. So
yeah, lovely.
people that are regular to my stream, and they're probably my regulars that have jumped on now. And if you're not, this stream is all about engaging you. If you've got any questions, if you've got any comments, I promise to read everything out. So if you've got anything that you want to contribute to this stream, then please do just throw it in, post a comment, get involved, ask your question. And for people that don't know, this is my friend Sean, who has been working on very deep level therapeutic basis. He's a psycho-spiritual counselor, does all sorts of interesting things. He's based over in Ireland. He's from England, and he's got the most interesting background and one of the best people ever to go out and have a drink with. So there's something, as a little PS as well. So we have only once has jumped on. Oh, just come across this morning. Live stream. Your energy is a breath of fresh air, Adam. Well, I'm sure that transcribes to you as well, Sean, because Sean is definitely a breath of fresh air, and he's actually out
I'm
in the
in the
fresh
fresh air.
air.
Yeah.
He's in the fresh air, so he's there on the coast of Ireland, living it up, and actually not just talking about how to reconnect. He's actually doing it. He's actually doing the stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I asked him a question for people that are late to the stream. I was like, what do you do if you hit rock bottom? And the general answer is, firstly, you just go, fuck. Like, oh shit. Right? When you hit that, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing. But to jolt yourself out, the most important thing is to really catch yourself. And you can start reversing it with breath work, deepening your breathing, grounding, and getting out into nature. These are like
Yeah.
three really powerful steps. Not just when you hit rock bottom, this is how you maintain your general daily energy in the here and now. You can maintain your energy in the here and now, even as you're watching. All of you, for watching this stream now, let's just take you through an exercise. Just ground yourself. Now, if you don't know what grounding is, just imagine a ball of light at the center of the earth connected to your spine, a cord connecting to your spine. And you don't have to visualize it because energy follows thought. Just thinking about it means you're grounded. And as you're watching this stream, just slow down your breathing and really properly breathe in from your stomach. Really breathe in and naturally slow it down. You're not forcing it. You're just slowing down your breathing naturally. That's something practical that you can do right now as you're watching this live stream to energize yourself, to increase your energy, to bring the chi inwards, to bring the chi inwards. So, talking of nature, Sean, I mean, and here's a little story for people that are watching. I first met Sean at a place in Scotland called Findhorn, which is a spiritual community. Now, I've not been back there since. This was over 20 years ago that I met Sean. But we were, maybe you would like to summarize what you got out of Findhorn, Sean. What was the main takeouts for you of
Oh,
that
I mean,
experience?
apart from meeting you, Adam, and we've had such fun ever since. Um, yeah, what took me to Findhorn, I was at a point in life, I'd been in Ireland a couple of years, and I'd met some really cool people here, and and one friend said, look, I've been going regularly to Findhorn. Do you want to come? So I went up, and in order to engage with the programs in Findhorn, you're required to do what they call Experience Week, which is a week-long foundational program about engaging in community in Findhorn. And it's been running for decades. It's the same sort of format for decades. So that's where I met Adam. Adam was on the same program. And for me, it was an opportunity to step back and actually being in an intentional community at a pivotal point in my life. I was in my late 30s at the time, and beginning to come back to myself in a way for the first time. And for me, it was the nature connection pieces that really stood out. I remember, Adam, I don't know whether you recall this, but we were out in the woods, I think halfway through the week, and we're out in the woods and we're invited to just literally come to our senses, and to really start to take a pause, take some time out in nature, find either a sit spot or a gentle walk through this amazing place we were in. And I came across a foxglove, which was as tall as me. I'm pretty sure I'm about 6'3", and this was a bloody great foxglove. And I remember slowing down and coming into relationship with this foxglove, and going right up and really engaging my sense of smell. And I I tasted it. I looked at it. I was listening to the movement of it, and it was one of the most intimate moments of my life in that place, in that time. And it sort of stirred something in me around nature connection and how easy and simple it is, but how profound it is also. And we have the faculty of our five senses to take us there at any moment. And we can start to then drop into this incredible web of life that is actually here to give us everything we need, want, and desire. This is what everything comes from, the web of life. And for me, that was a real sort of kickstart for that perspective, I think, in Findhorn. And of course, we had great fun, Adam. We met some really cool people. And when it all got a bit spiritually sort of up themselves, we went to the pub, and we had and we had and we had a few pints of what was the red, was it the beer was called the Red Beastie, or the pub was called the Red Beastie? I can't remember now. But yes, so it was all good fun.
That was good fun. So really, just to summarize, I mean, one of the days we went out into nature and we were encouraged to connect with it, I spent a lot of that day hugging trees.
Yeah.
And just getting over, my how I felt about people watching me hug trees, and how restricted I'd been in my mindset of actually truly deeply connecting with nature, slowing down my breathing, just being with nature and just appreciating it for what it was. And I just felt my energy just shoot up. When you take away the self-consciousness of that and really, truly, deeply connect with nature, it's one of the single most powerful things. And I think for a lot of empaths as well, Sean, and, it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on this. I think a lot of people with high empathy probably find it a lot easier to connect with nature than they do with some human beings at the moment. It's a lot more simple to connect with animals, pets, and nature than it is. And I think what I'm finding at the moment, a lot of highly sensitive people are finding these connections now because they're more genuine than a lot of human connections. They're a lot simpler, they're a lot easier, they're a lot more reciprocal. Be interesting to get your slant on that.
I think you're absolutely spot on, Adam. It's where, because if you're highly empathic and sensitive, of course, our nervous system tends to be very primed for any dissonance, any conflict, any harshness, right? It's a very challenging place to be. So it can be incredibly exhausting being very sensitive to and picking up the vibes of other people. So when we drop out of the human realm into the rest of life, there's some real nourishment that can come, and it's effortless. I think this is, to me, the Taoist perspective is beautiful here. Effortless living, Wu Wei. this is our actual birthright. Living in this realm, in this duality, on this planet, with all the millions of other beings of this world, we're inextricably part of that. And when we allow that sensitivity to feel into that, it's an incredibly powerful place to be. So yeah, I would consider myself sensitive and empathic, and sometimes and at times in my life incredibly overly sensitive and overly empathic. And I think, you know, the title of this this call today, you know, sorting our shit out, the journey for me has been really going back and uncovering the dynamics that have kept me as a human being caught in that sort of fight, flight, fear, freeze response during my life, that has created ways of being and conditioning and maintaining cycles of being very much a pleaser, overly pleasing, managing everybody else to make sure everybody else is safe so that I can actually be safe in the end. And it's exhausting. And I'm glad to be in a place in my life now where I am much, 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 much less of a pleaser than I was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And it's a great place to be, because you can become your own self-referencing point of nourishment then, rather than needing that to be external through other human beings all the time.
Fair
And when we
play.
put that, and when we put those demands on other people, of course, we're setting ourselves up for failure, because they will always fail. They're imperfect human beings like us. So I think
Well,
we're
speaking of
setting
that,
us.
Sean, we've got a question in which
Yeah,
segues beautifully into where I think you're at the moment.
yeah.
So we have only once asking, how do we conserve our energy when around tricky and provoking people? So I will
Mm.
give my answer, which will be very short. You
Oh, please do, Adam. Yeah, yeah,
set
yeah.
very clear boundaries. There you go. That's my
Absolutely.
slant on it.
Yeah.
Sean, what would you add to that?
Yeah, it absolutely is about clear boundaries. I think the tricky thing around that is, if there's a lot of fear and conditioning around setting boundaries, then it can be a very, very tough thing to do. So I think if it starts with the recognition, if we do an assessment of ourselves and go, right, if I step back and see, where do I get caught with people? How are people taking advantage of me? Or it feels as if they're taking advantage of me. And if the outcome of that is, okay, I need to set clearer boundaries, sometimes, rather than jumping into the most difficult human interaction to set boundaries with, if we know that's what we need to do, start off first with something that's much, much easier. So start maybe setting some boundaries in a different way around people that with people you're loved, that you have a good connection with, maybe you have a good communication with, where you can explain, okay, I realize I need to set some clearer boundaries around X, Y, or Z. So I'm going to try this with you, and I'd like some feedback, please. Right? And I'd like you to support me in this boundary setting. So start off small. I think with any change, Adam, I think we need to start off small and manageable. Sometimes it's really great to do big gestures and big changes, and they can be really exciting, and they can take us to a new level of awareness and understanding. But more often than not, I think it's the small, manageable changes where it really works. So practicing, if boundary setting is an issue, start really small, and start to build up your confidence and competence around putting clear boundaries in place.
I think that that's a really good idea, especially for highly sensitive people. I also think it's like anything else. You know, even the most highly sensitive person at a certain stage in life, you've let stuff go, you've let stuff go, you've let stuff go. And what it is, it cranks up the pressure.
Yeah,
You know, because there's a lot that the average sensitive person or empath or healer, we take on board and we just accept that is, we have to suck it up. I personally believe that there's a certain point in life where that spring is it's so compressed
yeah,
that you're just ready to make major changes. The brutal reality for me personally was the awareness that we teach people how to treat us.
absolutely, Adam. Yeah,
And that when I really took ownership I'm the one that teaching people. What am I doing that's making people comfortable treating me this way? And it's because of the lack of boundaries. It was the people pleaser energy. It was the highly sensitive empath in
Yeah.
me, thinking that that was what my role was, to absorb all of this. And it creates a massive pressure cooker, like a volcano, is how it came out for me.
Yeah.
So the main protagonist, which was in my family, one day pushed one too many times. And
Yes.
all I did was mirror the response for the years of nonsense that came out. And the boundary was, from that point, was very, very clear.
Yeah.
If you can't, behave yourself in my company, then there'll be no more time that you spend in my company. And that
Yeah.
boundary has been in place ever since. And if that
Fantastic.
means
Yeah.
cutting certain people off, I think, we all have our sort of limit on that one, don't we? I mean, what would your slant be on that one, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, Adam. And I think what that does take, though, is a lot of strength and confidence and courage to do that. And if that isn't there, it becomes really difficult to do that. And I think there's a foundational difference between letting go and a deep acceptance of what is. And so letting go, we can think we're letting go, but it might just be part of us playing with that notion. It's not a deep acceptance of dropping in to what really is, right? So I think it's important to understand, from what place are we letting go? Are we letting go from a part of us that is desperate for harmony? Maybe it's another facet of the pleaser that just wants to frame pleasing as letting go, right? And then we're not really letting go. We're just still burying and pushing stuff down. But on the surface, we're going, yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm just letting it go. It's okay. But if we're still burying and feeling resentment underneath all of that, then the shit will still hit the fan. But a deep acceptance of what is the recognition from a place that's beyond the different parts of ourselves. And that's where a spiritual practice, deep connection to nature, and a deep experience of that emptiness and spaciousness within, practicing being there can really help us then from that place realize that any attachment to outcome, any attachment to reaction and reactivity with somebody else is just a reverberation within our personality, and maybe just key parts of ourselves that are reacting in that situation. And then once we start to understand that it's just a part of us that's doing that, then it creates some spaciousness to look at what's really going on. So really, this is deep shadow work when we're talking about this. And I think I mentioned this last time we were chatting, Adam, the analogy of the alien in the film Alien, right? I think I mentioned this last time. Often when we're caught with something and it's really overwhelming us, it's like the alien do you remember the film where it attaches to the head and it puts this thing down the throat, lays an egg, and then it bursts out the stomach? Horrible, horrible stuff going on. But it's like that when we're like this with something, and we feel someone's really hurt us, and we're really caught with something. It's like that's all we can see. But if we have a place beyond that we can reside in, it's like we're pulling that alien off our face and we're seeing it for what it is, but there's space around it. And when there's space around it, we then have choice. Without the space around it, there is no choice. So awareness is everything. But also, I really think that finding a deep space within that's beyond the different parts of our personality is the foundational space from which we can truly and deeply accept what is.
It's true. I mean, you've mentioned a few interesting topics there, Sean, that could potentially be rabbit holes in themselves.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think, just to take a bigger picture point of this, is most empaths put up with a lot of stuff for a long time, and it isn't easy to
no,
draw clear boundaries. And I think the ability to create boundaries is directly proportional to the amount of pain and the time in life that you find yourself in as an empath. Because certainly most empaths in their 20s and 30s, are physically fit, in good shape, and magnets for dealing with, almost alchemists dealing with bullshit, I would say. I
Yeah.
certainly felt that way. But was I really dealing with it? Was I really letting it go? Because sometimes I would actually bring it home and say I was so reasonable to that person who was being a dick. I should, I shouldn't have been so reasonable. But I could
Yeah.
let it go because I had a good life, I had good friends, I had good fun. I think when life gets a little bit down the road, and you've lost a few friends, a few key people have died in your life, maybe a health challenge or two, an
Yeah.
absolute wall that you've hit. What happens is the amount of pain that happens, it helps to form boundaries. And what you've just mentioned there, Sean, going into the shadow. I think this is where a lot of highly sensitive people fear to tread the
Yeah.
darker aspect of their being.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's an interesting subject. We're going into the darkness. We're going into the darkness,
Into the
my
dark
Jedi
side. Into
friend,
the dark side.
into
Yes.
the darkness. So
Yeah.
we've got Amanda has joined in. Amanda M. Thank you for joining us, Amanda, and saying, I tend to overshare, then spend hours in regret.
Oh,
Wow,
bless you. Bless you. Yeah.
Amanda, I absolutely, I just actually felt a wave of energy going
Me
down from
too.
my
Me too.
heart
Just like, oh,
when I read that
yeah.
comment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm actually tingling at the moment, and I think you have just absolutely nailed one of the things, because the problem is that the average empath is just good to all. And when you overshare, especially with a narcissistic personality, you've just given a part of your soul, and they will use it against you. They will take your most intimate share and they will weaponize it against you. So sharing in the wrong company can be a cause for regret. I guess the other side of that is it also is the catalyst for new boundaries as well. But I mean, it's pain. We're talking a lot of pain here, Sean. What would
We
your slant be on that?
Oh, I mean, I'm just really with Amanda when your question, your question and your experience there. It's very painful, and I think number one is you have awareness around it, which is the starting point, and that's fantastic. The next piece then for me is what that oversharing is a part of you, right? And so what is that? So the oversharing is the behavior of a part of you. So, what does that oversharing part really need and want? What's it looking for? Why is it oversharing? So, you can start to investigate layers beneath the behavior, the oversharing, to say, what are the needs and wants there? And that's a useful exploration, because you start to get to what are the core emotions and the core qualities underneath the needs and the wants. And from a psychosynthesis perspective, which is the orientation I trained in, that at the heart of each of the fragments of ourselves, these sub-personalities with our different behaviors and needs and wants, at the heart of it is a transpersonal quality that's pure. But it's just been manipulated and skewed and molded into this sub-personality that's ultimately existing to keep you safe. So the oversharing at one level is you finding a way of managing that situation and keeping yourself safe. And then there's a reversion to some sort of self-trashing and regret and rumination afterwards, which is hell. And I really, I know that place only too well, Amanda. So I say that from first my own experience. So I think the work that this shadow work is really important here. And a Zen teacher that I connect with, his name's Doshin Nelson. He talks about the shadow very simply as the me I cannot see, and by definition it's unconscious to us. But the more we start to understand and bring the light of awareness to things, we bring those parts of us out into the light again, and or maybe for the first time, and we can start to look at them for what they are, and then see, that oversharing part of you may have been laid down many decades ago, many years ago. It could have started when you were really young to manage the family system. Who knows? I don't know your story, but but what we tend to happen is that serves us for a while, and then when we move into adulthood and later life, we start to feel the impact of that, and that way of behaving no longer serves us. So then it becomes an opportunity then to start to become more aware of it and pull the alien off the face, look at it for what it is, and then start to do it a little bit differently. And what I tend to find when I work with people, there are certain, either it's events that happen in life that force people to take this look. Sometimes it coming up to key decadal ages, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, where there's a sort of a review and a reappraisal. And I think energetically, it's another turn of the spiral of our life where we get a chance to look at things again from this new place as we prepare going into the next phase of life as well. So there's always opportunities for reflection, but just going back in, looking at what that part needs, what's it really covering up, and start to gently investigate that. And sometimes you need some help with that. Sometimes we need to do that in dialogue with another, be it somebody professional or somebody who you really trust, and to start to just gain awareness around that. And then that's where the healing can begin to come.
For sure. Well, we've had a few comments while you've been talking there, Sean. Amanda said 100%. Only once said, yes, Amanda, can feel really cringy afterwards. Amanda said, thank you. And only once has said, nice wisdom, Sean, about the alien. So there you go.
Yes.
Bring on Sigourney. Bring on
Bring on Sigourney.
Sigourney.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that comment about the cringiness, cringe, and God, I have that in me, that sort of contraction that happens. You go, oh God, but it's shame. It's a facet of shame, and to know it for what it is. And shame is that most devastating, inward-facing, self-denigrating, self-trashing. It's horrible, but it's also information to let us know where our pockets of hurt are and our pockets of wounding are, and it just enables us to start to navigate that a little bit differently over time. But it's hard work, and that's where I think the shadow work, I think, is good to engage in. I've just come off last weekend. I did a family constellations weekend for the first time, and incredibly powerful way of working with the unconscious patterns in myself, but also in the wider family system, and to do that in a group and have that group facilitated. So very powerful weekend, and just it just demonstrates, as empaths and sensitive people, that we pick all this shit up from everybody all the time. And when we start to do this in constellation, we can see how key people in our lives have particular positions, their own wounding, how that gets projected onto each other and us, and my stuff onto them, and start to understand how that system can shift when we bring awareness to things. So I think, having gone through that for the first time last weekend, wow, what an opportunity. So if you get a chance to do a family constellation weekend, really encourage you to think about it.
Fair play. So Amanda has said, I need to take my power back. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think every empath, that is where we're at now. This is
Yeah.
the game for empaths, is to, I would summarize it by saying, becoming your own best friend, or at least as good a friend as
Completely.
you are to everyone else. There's the disparity,
Yes.
and there's the litmus
Yeah.
test. There's the litmus test of where you are on your personal development journey.
Yeah.
If you compare the advice and the energy you give to your best friend with the self-talk you give to yourself, how do they compare?
Yeah.
So there's a very good litmus test for empaths, because the odds are you're the best friend to everyone else in your network, but probably not so good to yourself.
Yeah.
So we've got Alltug jumped in. Now, Alltug's on my Jedi training program, and he has definitely been going through some interesting times. He's based in the Ukraine, So
Right.
he's really, when we're talking about challenges, his level, we're talking serious challenges that he's been facing at the moment. And a question that he's brought to the mix here is, what if after a year of shadow work, the inner child still doesn't communicate anyhow? Well, Altug, I mean, firstly, I just can't imagine, having to go through the type of stuff that you're going through at the moment. And secondly, what I would say here is that the inner child is always communicating. We're just not very good at listening to it. So the question really, I would say for you, is how do you tap into that message? How do you
Yeah.
create a space to listen more deeply to what your inner child does? And we have luckily, we have a session later on for the Jedi training program. So that will segue beautifully into today's exercise that we will do on that training. So thank you. Thank you for giving me the topic that we will be addressing later.
Yeah.
And the gratuitous plug for the Jedi training program and academy that I run. And this is how I operate. So, yeah, I work with people that are highly sensitive, that are going through challenges at the moment and want to step up. Because I think also, Sean, bringing in with where we met, what you're doing, the family constellation, and finding the right group or teacher. I think for highly sensitive people, a lot of it is you're generally surrounded by arseholes or people that just don't get it or people that are asleep. So if you share anything in
Yeah.
that environment, it can feel unsafe.
Yeah.
What you need is a safe environment to share.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
This is, I mean, of all the stuff that we talk about on these streams, and the reason I do these streams is because a lot of people are feeling lost and isolated at the moment. Really lonely, dark times. Even people you live with, you can be in company, but still feel very alone and isolated, being sensitive to energy.
Yeah.
A lot of people I know, empathic people, they hate going out because they can't stand being in all of this chaotic energy and stuff. It
Sure.
can be a very, very isolating environment. And finding a safe place to share, I think, is at least half the battle here for most people that are sensitive to energy, that are healers, that are light workers, because you're waking up. We're in this process of awakening at the moment, and it's brutal.
Yeah.
It's absolutely brutal. Like, waking up is brutal. And if you haven't at least thought once on this journey, I've changed my mind. Whatever I said I came here for, I've changed my mind. Let's cut the script. I want to go back and sleep again. I want the blue pill. Here, can I regurgitate? Can I regurgitate the red
Yeah.
pill? I've changed my mind. I don't want it anymore now that I've seen it's very lonely and isolating. I mean, what would your slant be on that, Sean?
Oh God, I know that place only too well. Yeah. I think you've got to find your tribe. I think it's really important to find like-minded people that you can be yourself with and to trust and to share your sensitivity and what's coming up. And also to have a place where you can share that, but also get some constructive feedback around where you're getting caught. I know for many years I've been involved in men's work through the Mankind Project and with a men's group locally here. And one of the exercises that we do in building the container each time we meet is we look in each other's eyes round the room and to check if I have any reverberations with any other man in the group. And it might be just a little glimmer of something. And that's called a charge, right? And then we can do a process around that where we actually start with the charge with the data. What's the data around this? So we might get a feeling and then we might arise a thought from that. And then there's a projection that's there. But if we just look at the data and say, the data is this person said hello to me. That's actually what happened. But my reaction was it was the way he said hello. And then he looked at me funny. And then I remember then that when people feel like that, I feel like shit. So therefore, I'm just going to back away and not contribute. And I'm going to sit and ruminate in this for the next hour rather than actually be part of the group. So the there's something very profound about finding a good group of people where you can actually be authentic with what's coming up and then be helped to understand where we'll be getting caught here. Because again, that's the shadow, that's the stuff, that's our wounding, our conditioning that gets in the way, that puts a layer of projection out that isn't true. It's true for us in the moment, but it's not actually true for the situation. So I think that's where a lot of this work actually resides, particularly if you're sensitive and empathic, is to look at where our personality is getting caught, or the parts of our personality is getting caught. How do we start to make sense of that? You know, and I know what you're saying, Adam, about, you know, it's being around arseholes. Yeah, I get that. But again, that is a judgment that actually keeps us away from love. So I'd be more interested in, okay, what part of me views that person as an arsehole? And where does that part really come from? Why am I projecting that onto them? Because they're just another flawed human being like me, with their own level of expression and behaviors. They're just different to mine, right? So, so what can I learn about myself with that judgment of the other, of them being an arsehole? And if we start with 80% of the charges or judgments I have with other people are not about the other person, they're actually about the work that I need to do, that's very liberating, because then it means we actually have control over this space here and the work that we do. And we're not then victims to assholes that are ruining our day, right? So I think there's perspective is everything here, Adam, I think.
I think you're completely right, Sean. We've had a couple of comments in as you were talking. So Alltug said, you're awesome, Adam. I was just thinking to ask your friend if it's possible to go back to sleep. So thanks, Alltug.
Well, I guess, again, back to what we're talking about. Yes, it's possible. I'd look at what's the call to sleep. What part of you wants to dissociate and go unconscious? Because that's a part that's then up and forwards and trying to keep you safe, right? So again, bringing awareness, view these experiences as potential parts of your personality that are now running the show. So that's what I would say to that. So what part of you wants to go to sleep? What's it trying to protect, right? What's it keeping you away from? And maybe it's just about you need deep nourishment. You're overstimulated, you're overwhelmed, and you need to look after yourself and get recovery. Maybe then it's feet on the floor, doing some deep breathing, doing some gentle exercise or a yoga practice or whatever you choose to do. Getting out in nature, walking the beach, getting your toes in the sand, having a laugh with a friend. That's maybe what that sleepy part of you is actually calling you to do, is to get some recovery. Because one of the things I like, I'll say this very quickly, one of the things I love, Adam, about connecting more with nature is that nature works in ebbs and flows. Everything is in and out, from the seasons, the phases of the moon, even down to, you know, how our bodies work. Our heart is a pump, it contracts and relaxes, right? We have brain waves going up and down, sleep cycles. Everything works in cycles in nature. So it's understanding the ebbs and flows of our responses and our reactions to things, and what do we need in the ebb. So if the flow is saying, oh, I'm overwhelmed, I need to go to sleep, what is the ebb calling for, right? And the ebb is calling for recovery in that sense, I would suggest. And that's where reconnection to nature is amazing, because we can start to reimagine our lives in cycles and the ebbs and flows, and to build that more into the way that we manage our day and our weeks and our months. And modern human beings, us as modern human beings, we've lost the way. We've gone linear, and we don't see the changes throughout the year. We don't allow the ebbs and flows in life, and it's killing us. You know, the levels of stress and overwhelm that many of us are feeling, particularly if you're sensitive and empathic, it's just enormous. And the world's increasingly chaotic, and there's a lot of external challenges out there that are just fueling the fire of this. So we have to nourish ourselves, build our foundation that we can sit in, stand on, that nourishes us and lets us know that we're okay. And then from that place, come out back into the world and navigate things with more awareness.
That's a good point, Sean. Really good point. Hopefully that answers your question, Altug, that there's a message. There's a message there somewhere, a bigger central message. So Tammy has asked, any ideas on how to find these people? I'm in America. Well, I can tell you for certain, Tammy, having been to America myself, there's tons of people over there that are definitely into this kind of stuff. But the thing is, on this one, it's almost paradoxical, isn't it? That in order to find them, you have to turn your light on. And
Yes.
that's you have to turn your light on. You have to put your hand up and say, yes, that's me. And you're going to get a lot of judgment with that. So first and foremost, where do you find these people? Well, I understand that you're asking, you want to physically connect. You want to go to groups locally. So I feel that that's the real question that you're asking me. Where do you connect with them? Well, here we are. Here we are. You're connecting with us right now. So you're actually doing it right here in this moment. That's what these live streams are for. So that you can connect with like-minded people, so that you can be real. You can be real. Tammy always says, she always says to me in her comments, thanks for keeping it real. It's about
Absolutely.
it is about keeping it real, Tammy. That's exactly what this is about. And if I was to highlight the journey for me, in fact, let's go back a step, because people ask me about the dark side shadow work. When I did my channeling course, he said, if you really want to understand what your ego is, then I'm going to tell you right now, it's everything that you think that you can't share with anybody. The part of you that's so completely private that you feel, if I said this about myself, that you'd be so deeply judged that you just couldn't possibly share it. So there's an interesting question. And I got really vulnerable and I shared some really heavy duty shit there, thinking, right, that'll help the people open up. I mean, it was right, properly heavy duty stuff. And I was like shaking, a bit like you said earlier, oversharing and then feeling very, very vulnerable. I felt at the end of it. And everyone else was sharing. And this is my judgment as well. I put my judgment on it. And that didn't help me in this instance. People were sharing stuff. Oh, I once smoked pot. I was like, really? That stuff I share at that time when I would share that every day. That's not that's not deep and meaningful. But again, we've all got different realities on what it is. What is the part of you that you can't share with anybody else? That's how you find out what your deepest and darkest stuff, and finding the right people, the right circles to trust to be able to do that is a very fine line, isn't it? Because some people will take stuff like that and they could use it against you. It could be weaponized. If you don't have Chatham House rules on these kind of sharing circles, there's a lot of trust involved. And I think trust is the currency, isn't it? That we're all trading in now. Empaths, trust is the real currency here. That how do you find it? How do you know it? How can you guarantee it? And the problem is that you can't. You can't. Like, I would trust Sean because I've known him for years, and we've stood the test of time, which is why I've brought him on this stream, because I can personally endorse him and recommend him and tell you he's an absolutely top bloke, and not just for the spiritual stuff that we talk about here. My litmus test is this somebody that I could go to the pub with?
Yeah.
There's someone I could go to the pub with, because that's when the real sharing happens. When you've had a few drinks, it all comes out, doesn't it?
Yes, indeed. I
Absolutely.
think trust is an interesting one, Adam. I remember back to something came up years ago in the men's group for me when I first joined, and trust was huge for me. And I was saying, we need some mechanisms and boundaries and containers to build trust. And one of the men said, he was I forget who he was quoting, but he said, Sean, how do you know you can trust somebody? And I said, I'm not sure. And he said, you trust them, right? He said, how do you know you can't trust somebody? You trust them. So it's something about trust always requires a level of discomfort and risk, I think. And it's
Mm.
just discerning how much you're willing to put yourself on that edge of discomfort to see if I trust this person or not. And that's a very individual assessment. That's an individual thing. But it will require a level of stepping beyond that sort of the oceanic oneness of our own immediate container, you know, to say, I'm gonna reach out and try and test whether I can trust this person or not. And you can drip feed it in. You don't have to just jump in with both feet and declare the depths of your soul, but you can start to drip things in and test things out and build trust over time. But you're right, trust, and particularly for empaths and sensitive people, trust is everything. Absolutely everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just
For sure.
one other thing around the ego, if I could just mention, it's you know, I'd be quite a Buddhist and Taoist in my approach to things, and of course, you know, the ego gets a bad rap in Buddha. It's like, how do we transcend the ego, right? How do we move beyond that into the light? And I get that, but what I love about the psychosynthesis approach to looking at that is it's saying on one level, the level of this duality, we absolutely need a good functioning ego to navigate the world. But that ego needs to be strong and flexible and big enough to contain our potential and start to help us really have the wherewithal to get out in the world and build relationships and act on our wishes and desires and all of that. So an ego is absolutely essential. It's just the level, what type of ego challenges do we have is the question. So we can't get rid of it. We shouldn't get rid of it. We need it. But that's just the level of our personhood. When we bring in the transpersonal piece that's beyond the ego, that's a whole different ballgame. We're connecting to cosmic consciousness. We're connecting to the to Zen, to universal energy, however you want, God, however you want to define it. But there's something beyond the ego that's also we're connecting with, and bringing that back into re-educate and re-inform our personality and our ego structures, so that we can act more in alignment to purpose, deep purpose for ourselves. So, because within our ego is not just the shit, it's all our joy as well. It's all there as well, contained as human beings in this. I love this phrase, our skin encapsulated ego. That's how we navigate the world. But everything's there. We can't live without it. We just need to change and heal the parts that aren't working very well, and expand our capacity for love within this ego body mind that we're navigating the world with. So yeah, I just wanted to put that point in, Adam.
Well, it's a really good point, Sean, and it sort of links back with a point that you made earlier about the projection that we do. You know, I do call
Yeah.
I do on my videos quite a lot. Say you've attracted arseholes in your life, and you actually brought up a big thing. There's a quote I think in that I saw once. It's like, we don't see the world as it is; we see it as we are.
Yeah,
And I think,
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know, going through that transitional process as an average empath, there's no such thing as an average empath. But
No.
let's just say, you know, when you're empathic, when you're going through that, when I was going through it, I'll take ownership of it all. When I was going through it, you know, I knew that I would be in the arsehole for putting up with all this nonsense for years.
Mm.
You know, the real arsehole was me, that I had accepted this and made it okay for people to show up in my world to treat me in a certain way.
Yeah.
And what has to do, like, the fire comes before the clear out. The first, you have to have the awakening moment, and then it's the phoenix from the flames. You can only be the
Absolutely.
phoenix. You can't have a phoenix without fire. That's really where we're at, isn't it? And the fire has to burn, and that's when it's okay to get in touch with things like anger and all suppressed emotions that
Yeah, absolutely.
that people with high empathy generally suppress for fear of judgment. It's not me. I'm not angry. I'm spiritual. I don't feel anger. I don't feel this rage. No, that's not me. This can't be right. We start judging our own emotions. So it's like, oh, no. And the day that you just let them all out and just say, actually, no, I'm just going to go and vent. This is a big part of the process. Just saying, just allowing it to vent. And Amanda N has just gone in and said, ouch, yes. It really is.
Yeah.
Amanda, it's so true, and this is a big part, even on the program that I'm running at the moment, this fear of judgment. Oh, I should be feeling this, or I should be feeling. No, you shouldn't. Just get
No.
really angry. Just allow your real emotion to come up. You've got to
Yeah.
start from a place of acknowledging where you are. Otherwise, you're never going to get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
And
And
part
that
of it is
process is really messy, Adam. It's really messy.
Yeah.
It's not linear. It's all not nice and compassionate and kind. It can be really quite chaotic as you try that out, because you're going to be like stepping forward, stepping too far, and then, feeling shit about it. And then maybe falling in on yourself again and coming back to center and then trying it again. And, it's how toddlers learn to walk. We're doing the same thing. It's a fairly chaotic process of falling over a lot, pulling yourself up, and shitting your pants along the way.
Well,
Right?
that's it. It's got to be done, hasn't it?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we've got Grizzly
yeah.
Gurr on now. It's the first comment from Grizzly, so thanks for jumping on the comments here, Grizzly. I'm too reactive, but I didn't realize the pattern. I'm practicing not to react, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
Well, that's that's a loaded comment there, Grizzly. And sometimes it is better to react. This is the whole
Yes.
point.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're practicing not reacting is suppressing the pressure within.
Yeah.
And that has a
Absolutely.
time and a place in certain situations. So if someone was holding a gun to your head, it'd probably be a good time to exercise a bit of suppress what you're really feeling and to do what you're
Yeah.
told. But in any other situation where your life's not at risk, if you're suppressing stuff and letting people get away with stuff, then maybe it's not so good. So and you're right. And knowing the difference between the two, that's definitely not easy.
Yeah.
It is definitely not easy. And all tugs jumped back in.
Just a point on that, Adam. I think there, really, if we're saying, and I really hear that really trying hard not to practice not reacting, and there's a real calling for wanting things to be different and to feel confident in that situation. I really hear that and feel that. But what's actually happening is we're just reacting to trying not to react, but we're still reacting. The reaction's already happened. So it's understanding again, is there a part of you? What part of you is reacting? It's not all of you reacting. It might feel like it, back to the alien on the face, but it's only part of you reacting. So what is that part? How old is that part? All right. When did you first, is this the first time you've reacted in this situation, similar situation, or is there another time in the past where you reacted like that before? If so, when was that? How old were you? What were the circumstances around that? And when you start to do that, what happens is you start to step back from the reaction and the immediacy of the moment and start to go, hold on a second, there's a pattern here and I'm doing it again. Oh, right, I'm doing it again. There's a little bit of awareness there and a bit of compassion can come in. Once the compassion comes in, it takes the edge off the reaction. And you can start to allow what's arising in the reaction to have some place within you. And then you can take the steam out of it. But it just takes time. But again, it's stepping back, awareness, looking at where those early parts got set down and crystallized into a maintaining cycle or a way of behaving. Yeah. So there's a lot going on there. Often it's early stuff. Sometimes it can even be birth process stuff where our will gets trapped. Sometimes it can be pre-birth into uterine experiences. When we start looking at systems and the sensitivity of a body in a wider system, and the influences that happen around that. You know, there's so many things that can get laid down very, very early on that are pre-verbal, that we can't think about it in words, which is where somatic body work is really, really beneficial. Just forgetting the story and getting into what's the body holding around those situations. So if you're finding something really hard to reach and there's a lot of reactivity there, I would really recommend some sessions with somebody who is a somatic body-based worker, sensory motor practitioner, somatic experiencing, those sort of things that can really help to unpack what's actually going on in the body. What are these trauma responses, which is what it is, that overreactivity is a trauma response. What's that connected to? And start to do a piece of work around that and see if you can start to understand that a little more.
That's a good point. We're getting communicated from ourselves at different ages, and different trauma is stored in the
Yeah.
body, and
Yeah.
it's stored there until we have the capacity to release it, which is often later in life. So Altug has jumped in. Is fear of judgment, or that I understand people don't care what I tell? A few women forced me to say what's on my mind. I wrote, they read, they didn't even make a comment. If close friends do that, why open up? We're right back to that, Altug. You know, you're in a catch-22 situation. My read on this would be that if you don't open up ever, then you'll stay closed.
Yeah.
The trust's philosophy here, if you start judging everyone because you've been abused by one or two people, or three or four, or even seven or eight, and I've actually gone through this process. People make judgments based on seven or eight at the most bad experiences, but then throw everybody else into the pack. It's like, oh, it's happened 7 or 8 times, so everybody by default is guilty.
Yes.
You know, the gift of being an empath is having that trust, is having that openness. And we lose it when we've been abused or stitched up one too many times. And the game here is to develop boundaries so that we don't lose the essence of who we are, but we do learn to identify the people that don't necessarily warrant our trust or our love or our respect, shall we say, to
Yeah.
to be able to. And this is right back to boundaries. We're right back to boundaries. It's all about boundaries. Everything is about boundaries. You don't change who you are or the essence of who you are. You just have certain boundaries, and if people violate them and they're really clear, then they're out off the radar. And you can do that with love as well, because you're not. I mean, if you're hating, that's a boomerang. It's coming back to yourself. Love yourself enough to have clear boundaries and say no to people, to certain people, would be my sort of slant on that one, Altug.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there anything you would add to that, Sean?
I think that the boundary setting is really important. I mean, conscious boundary setting is just a really good response to the unconscious reactivity that's happening. So I think there's a lot to be said for. I struggled with this over years, just doing affirmations. Adam, I just used to go, "Oh, what a load of bull this is." Just doesn't work. But I've been doing some regular affirmations every morning, and I'm really feeling it's setting the ground underneath me. So it's things like, I am lovable, right? I give love completely and fully, and I receive love completely and fully. I honor that my soul and my essence transfers to the world, and I receive that back equally. There's these sort of affirmations that we can make sense for ourselves, that we can start to repeat, that lays down a different response within us. And I think there's a place for that here, so that we can start to repattern ourselves also at the cognitive level as well. I think often we tend to, if we're empathically orientated and spiritually aligned, we tend to denigrate the mental. And I think there's a place for it. And I think the, setting down new neural pathways around particular ways of thinking. So NLP is brilliant for that. That you can start to repattern reactions to responses. So You know, if you're finding that you're really attracting people that don't listen to you, maybe it's about setting intentions every day that you know, I am worthy. I am worthy to be understood and loved and listened to, and say that every day, several times a day, and have that as a way of an invitation to the universe to bring what you truly desire. You know, and it'll also bring up the shadow side of that, the parts of you that are rejecting that at some level. So, but I think the affirmations do have a place, and it helps also reinforce the boundaries that we're setting out. And back to your point, the clarity of boundaries really, really important.
For
And
sure.
yeah,
For sure. And so Alto says, thank you very much. Grizzly Gur is back. My husband purposely gets me reacting. I set my first boundary 2 years ago. It makes me feel like I only isolated myself more. So good points here, Grizzly. That's a great name, Grizzly Gur. What a great name for a start. So it really is. Look, no one's said that any of this stuff's going to be easy. I mean, me and Sean are both in. We've had our youth is maybe behind us right now, and we've had to go through the school of hard knocks to get to the certain
oh
point.
God, yeah,
And,
yeah,
and I think everyone has to go through their school of hard. There's no fast track here. Well, there's a faster track. I mean, obviously, our intention is to pass our wisdom to people that are younger so they don't have to suffer as much. But you can't ever stop people from going through their own process and suffering, because that's the only way you really learn. It's very difficult to learn third or second hand from other people. That's why parents pass on wisdom and kids do exactly the opposite. They have to discover their own way. Don't go and get yourself really drunk. What was that about getting really drunk?
yeah,
So it's a tough one, Grizzly, and people are there to get you reacting. So your husband in this incident is also, you're probably seeing them as your worst enemy in that instance, but they're also your best friend,
yeah,
because you can't set clear boundaries until people keep testing them.
yeah,
You only get to see if the boundaries are actually in place and they're solid and firm if people continuously test them. So the person that tests your boundaries is just as loving as the person that loves you for having the boundaries in the bigger picture of who you are. Because if no one, there's only one thing worse than people testing your boundaries, there's no one caring enough to give a shit about you to test, to even bother, seeing whether you've got any boundaries in place.
yeah,
And so it is a catch-22 on that one. There's no really, we've got, so yes, I feel your pain. It is, we're constantly going to be tested. We're constantly going to be tested. Only once has jumped in and said, wow, great wisdom here, Sean and Adam. Thank you. You're very, very welcome. Very, very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for showing up again on the stream. And Amanda has jumped in saying no, and then the person gets offended is a problem. But saying yes means betraying ourselves.
yeah,
Well, Amanda, you've actually pointed out a really interesting thing for the empath. See, saying no is a problem to the empath because you like to be liked. But if the person that feels that you'd betray them for saying no feels that way, then you can be sure if they say no, they're not going to get offended at all and have no issue with it. And it is that understanding through the lens of the other person as well, that if someone really loves you, they will respect your boundaries in the same way that you would respect theirs. It's very easy for an empath. Just be your own, just detach from yourself and be your own best mate. Be at least as good a mate as you would do to your best mate and give the advice that you would give to them. And it becomes crystal clear, because we see our mates through a very neutral lens, and you can see it from a fair lens as well.
yeah.
But how is it possible that we're not friends to ourselves in the same way? Which is always where it boils down to. It's very clear if you're advising your best mate, but not necessarily as clear if you're advising yourself. Grizzly Gara said, but it's clear. It's It's a relationship. It's as clear that it's a relationship. You're absolutely right there, Grizzly. Welcome to the stunning world of relationships. They're there to help us grow as well. Now, I have noticed in this thread, we've gone on. We're over the hour. We're well over the hour mark now. So we'll be looking to wrap this up within the next few minutes, folks. So if you've got any further questions, we will answer all the questions, but we'll be wrapping it up in a few minutes. So if you've got any more questions then, or comments or statements or things you would like to contribute to this, then by all means do them. We'll be looking to wrap it up. On that basis, Sean, is there anything you want to conclude with based on the content of what we've this is quite a rabbit hole we've been in today, fella.
We're multiple rabbit holes as usual, Adam.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think on that last point, I think with boundary setting, obviously it's really important we set boundaries. It's also equally important that we communicate why we're setting those boundaries to the people that we're setting those boundaries with. And if there's like your husband or somebody you trust that's also there for you, they will get why. They may not remember it and you might have to repeat it, but at least every time you explain again, no, this is why I'm saying no here. This is why it's important to me. I'm making this change in my life and I'd like your support, and you can support me by respecting this boundary. So you're stating what you want using I statements. You're not pointing the finger going, you're being a bollocks and you're doing my head in. And there again, you've breached this boundary I put in place, right? You're actually bringing it back home using I statements. I think this, I feel that, I would like this, and communicating that. And that's a very, very empowering position. But it'll take time. It's an iterative process. It'll take time to land in and deepen. And the more you do it, the more it's like wearing an unfamiliar coat. It'll mold to you over time and you'll feel good about it. And you would have made a big piece of progress. So I think we started with boundaries right at the beginning. I think we're ending with them, Adam, despite the convolutions in between. But I think boundary setting is hugely important. I statements, and all of this is around looking at our parts and our shadow and trying to bring awareness to all of it, and find people wherever that you can connect with and have those deeper conversations and share with the right level of trust what's going on, and really have that intention each day to call in that level of consciousness and those people and that what you really desire, call that in every day, and then see the magic begin to unfold. So
that is a great summary, Sean. It is a convoluted web we weave for an empath.
yeah.
You're here, you understand humanity, you see it, you see human emotion, you see human hypocrisy all the time. You are a shock absorber, you are a mediator. And also, all of these conflicting messages. And I think what you've brought up today really beautifully, Sean, is that there's different parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
Stuff we feel isn't like the current me, it's the 7-year-old me, or the stuff that had unfilled trauma, or the conversation my parents had about an abortion while I was in the uterus. And this is areas I've worked with as well, why people feel rejection or feel pain throughout life. And there's so many things that we don't know about what caused us to feel the way that we do right now.
Yeah.
And this is the moment of awakening. Some people are ready to find out, and some people just aren't. Most people aren't.
Yeah.
But for a select group, and they're usually highly empathic people, you just reach the have enough stage.
Yeah.
And at the end of this, I'm not going to say at the end of this line, but certainly for a lot of people that I end up working with, you have to hit that point, that all-time low. And when you hit that as an empathic person, part of you will start to feel the energy of suicidal energy. And you're there thinking, what's my reason to be alive? Or is it time to change?
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's the path. And quite often people aren't ready to change, they haven't been taken low enough to be motivated to put themselves first and to become their own best friend.
Yeah.
and also from an energy point of view, we take on board other people's energy. So if you don't have clear boundaries and energy exercises to clear off other people's energy, we're operating through other people's energy, and that's where you can get lost who you are as well. So it's a fascinating world, and it's been brilliant that you've joined me today, Sean, to bring your always unique perspective on it. For everybody that's coming on late to this thread, we're going to wrap it up now, but I will absolutely endorse and guarantee that following Sean or getting his insights is a very, very good thing indeed. He certainly brought a lot of wisdom, not just practical stuff, but great fun as well. Like when I meet up with Sean, there's never a dull moment. So you've got the full package there, you know, somebody that knows what he's talking about, and he's great fun as well. So especially for you all based in Ireland, well, that's where he is. So Sean, thank you so much for joining me. I see Grizzly Gurr has said that it's been up all night at 7 a.m. there. So fair play, Grizzly. I'm guessing.
Oh, bless you. Thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm guessing you're in Australia or Southeast Asia or somewhere, or that kind of sort of corner of the world. Well, wherever you are, Grizzly, I hope it has been worth it for you to join us on this thread. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for everybody that's jumped on. Thanks for everyone that's joined us, and thanks for everybody that's shared. As ever, to create this stream for what it is, because we never know where it's going. We never know. We never know. We just put some clickbait there.
Yeah.
Oh, in Michigan, USA. So fair play, Grizzly. Thank you for bringing the American connection to us. So yes, it's early in the morning back there. Been up all night. And that's me with my timeline calculations completely out because I'm skewed. Sean, thanks very much.
No, thank you, Adam. That's great. It's been just a delight to be with you today, and thanks everybody for your questions and your insights, and yeah, just really great to be part of this. So I really appreciate being here.
No, it was brilliant fun. Well, we shall tail it off today. Wish you all well. Do get involved. Do join us for another one. We'll be back again soon. And good luck in your boundary setting.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
nobody
indeed.
said it's going to be easy. Let's just be really clear about that. But it will definitely be worth it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, life-saving and life-changing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, take care, folks. Thanks for joining us.
Take care. Good luck. Bye-bye.